Welcome to the second Raw Magick Lite tutorial. In this tutorial, we will cover some of the basic features of Raw Magick Lite. We will cover topics such as exposure correction, white balance, curves, saturation, histograms, saving, high-quality demosaiking, plus a few other time-saving tips. Do please read the manual for information on all menu items and other functionality. We start the tutorial with Raw Magick Lite opened in its default state. First, we use the Explorer pane to navigate to where the RAW files reside. Now that we see the photos, we can collapse the Explorer view using F4. If you happen to be in a directory with many non-RAW files and RAW files, one can click on RAW Only to remove non-RAW files from the thumbnail view. To open the photo, double-click on the thumbnail. If required, one can collapse the thumbnail view. For more viewing space, one can also press F10 to remove the zoom bar from the bottom of the screen. Now to visually assess the image. Its most prominent problem is that it is underexposed. There are a number of ways we can deal with this problem. First, we could use the Curve tool, though this would leave us without the ability for further tweaks. If we click on the Other tab, we can see an EV slider. This is for exposure compensation and simulates exposing the image less or more for a specific number of stops of light in 1/6 increments. Your camera will sport similar exposure compensation controls. Here, moving it to +1 EV improves matters considerably. Perhaps a more exact method is using Auto White Point. This uses the maximum value from the RGB channels with which to redistribute the levels. If it is unchecked, one can then use the white point slider for further improvements. Next, the image needs to be white balanced. In Raw Magick Lite, there are many ways to white balance an image. One can right-click or right-drag in a neutral area of the image, like so. Right-click dragging samples the pixels in the selection area in order to determine the white balance. One can observe that the red, green and blue sliders have been updated. These sliders can be adjusted manually, but because the sliders allow a large range of values, it can be tricky to make very fine adjustments. To solve this, simply double-click on the percentage label of the R, G or B slider you wish to adjust, and a larger slider appears which allows for finer adjustments. The third method involves using presets. Presets manipulate the raw data at its most fundamental level to produce very satisfactory results. Here, selecting direct sunlight brings the image to the correct white balance. This tutorial continues in part 2.